generation. South Carolinians have the mind power. We have to make sure that the infrastructure is put in place. After he brought jobs to Claflin, after he's brought jobs to Benedict, after he's brought jobs to South Carolina State, the employers have all said, where is the housing? After we're not going back in time with this administration. We're not going to let them take down the names of men and women who have decorated our military bases and have all made us proud. We don't want to see any more Confederate generals all over the state of South Carolina. That's the past. We don't want to hear about segregated water fountains, segregated nurses. We don't want that lifestyle for South Carolinians or anyone else. So what do we have to do? We have to be bold. We have to be imaginative. That's why I'm so proud to introduce my friend who has an economic vision for this country, who's brought jobs to South Carolina. He shows up with receipts. He made a pilot program to test and see if the universities would adopt it, and they did. He made a pilot program. He's brought in the wealthiest companies in Silicon Valley to come to the districts in South Carolina. They like the talent here. Now they're asking all of us to step up, to make sure that our legislators here are voting in your best interest. And I can tell you the truth, they've not done what was right by South Carolina. So we're going back at it the old school way. Hand to hand, door to door, neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend. Some of the people that are here, that are going to Washington, they need to stay here, and we need to send some new representatives to Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, a man that's traveled across this nation. We've been to Charleston, we've been through Greenville tonight, we've been through Columbus. We're going back to Columbia this evening. We're going to continue to touch people hand to hand. If you want to get involved, please go to the Khanna website. We want to come and see you. We want to make this a better, more prosperous nation, a better, more prosperous South Carolina. All roads lead through South Carolina. The honorable, keenly articulate, persuasively analytical, instinctively intelligent, the honorable Congressman Khanna.
Let's give Jonathan Jackson a big round of applause. There's Reverend Mills. Let's give Reverend Mills a big round. Come on out. I am so blown away. We were coming down, driving down, pouring rain. I said to Aaron, should we drive back, or are people going to show up? Rain isn't going to stop people here in Greenville. I just have to say, over 260 folks braving the rain. And this room, this church, give yourselves a round of applause. They say people aren't showing up, they haven't seen Greenville. And by the way, the people in this room, this is what America looks like. This is what America looks like. black and white, Asian, Latino, all in the room for a common country, for a common vision. This has given me so much hope. End of the day, I went to 2 church services, NAACP, we got some barbecue in the afternoon, a long day. But I walked in here and I said, in the rain, this gives me hope about this country. I want to say a few words about Jonathan Jackson and Pastor Mills, but I want to first recognize my good friend, your state chair of the Black Caucus. She drove all the way up for this event. State Representative Andy McDaniel. Will you stand up? Will you stand up? Now you may not know this, but Andy McDaniel is recognized as one of the top 10 rising stars, not in South Carolina, in the nation. In the nation. And anytime she comes out to D.C., Jonathan and I see her, we get dinner. I'm so proud of her friendship. And we got another rising star here. Star already. Jermaine Johnson. Will you stand up, Jermaine? You see, a lot of folks, they go around the state, they go around the country, they have these clutches and they talk to the donors and they talk to the party leaders, and some of the wiser ones talk to the pastors and the faith leaders. But Jermaine goes around and he talks to gang members. And he talks to folks who didn't finish high school. And he talks to folks who are looking for a way out, but don't have a way out. And he talks to them and he says, what can we do differently? I don't need pollsters to tell me the problem of young men. I don't need the DNC spending $20 million on some bogus study to realize the problem of young men. I'm going to ask young men what they want. What a novel idea. Stand up, Jermaine Johnson. Now, until this trip, I always thought that Reverend Jackson was not to be matched. You know, I grew up memorizing his 1988 speech of Keep Hope Alive. And then I gotta tell you, I've been hearing Jonathan Jackson this week, and I don't know what's gotten into him. But something about being back home, he has been on fire. He has been on fire. I'll tell you what makes Jonathan different. He has no fear. He has no fear. He has no fear of talking about why it is unconscionable to erase Colin Powell and Jackie Robinson and Medgar Evers from Black history. He's told the caucus, you know, one of the things, I didn't know this until Jonathan comes up to the House floor and he starts to educate us. He says there is affirmative action that's constitutional in one part of our country. I said, what is that, Jonathan? He says our military academies. Our military academies, because they recognize that you need people from all backgrounds, all races, to be the best at defense, to keep this country safe. He says if it's good enough for our military, why isn't it good enough for our companies, for our educational institutions, for our schools? See, Jonathan has become the civil rights voice, the human rights voice, the voice of economic justice, the voice of a new civil rights movement in the United States Congress. And I am so honored that he came here. So honored that he came here on this tour, back home. Now, he tells me that when he was growing up here and coming here for the summers with his grandmother, that they didn't have air conditioning. And he said it wasn't too hot. I said, what are you talking about? And he says it's gotten hotter. But he knows South Carolina. He knows, he bleeds for South Carolina. He bleeds for the Black South. He bleeds for justice. This isn't politics for him. This is in his soul. Thank you, Jonathan. Pastor Mills, incredible in the leadership he's shown. He said, let's give him a round of applause there, Pastor. He said, I'm going to make sure that we organize the different churches and the faith communities to come out, because this is important for voters to understand and engage in our democracy. It's so important for us to be engaged. If we had 1,000 faith leaders like Pastor Mills across this state and across this country, we would take back the House of Representatives, the Senate, the presidency, and be on the road to justice. He has that kind of vision, that kind of leadership. He understands that you can't just have faith without living your faith. You can't preach about caring for people, about treating people with dignity on Sunday morning,
and then go to Washington on Monday and start to vote to cancel people's health care, to take away their food assistance, to take away their education. Something doesn't add up. And he and Jonathan and I are tired of people professing their faith and then voting against their faith. We need to have a true moral politics in this country. And I'll tell you where that true moral politics and moral center begins. It begins with a simple view that if you are part of the wealthiest place in human history, $14 trillion in my district in Silicon Valley, if you have the wealthiest nation in the world and the wealthiest
moment in the world, then you don't strip people of basic health care. Then you don't take away from people who are poor the food and the education to give more tax breaks to the billionaires who already have more wealth than they know what to do with. There is anger in this country at the injustice of it. Instead, what we need to be doing is taxing that wealth and making sure every person in this country has health care with Medicare for all, single payer. You know, by the way, they tell me that is too progressive for South Carolina. You know who ran on single payer? Jonathan Jackson's dad. In 1984, in 1988, he said health care is a human right. In this country, everyone should have health care from the day they are born. If you want to have a moral politics in this country, you don't take away $6 billion from education funding for our kids. You know, I was talking to the superintendent, hundreds of kids are not going to get their after school starting in the fall because the president is unconstitutionally holding the funds. What is moral about that? What is moral about that? That's what this bill is doing. Cuts to education funding, cuts to funding for people who may want to go to college, cuts to the Pell Grants, cuts to student loans, cuts to all of the funding for people, young kids who have disabilities, who need the funding for disabilities, cuts to funding for the Affordable Care Act. Already 20% of African American adults don't have health insurance. This is going to kick more people off. 6 hospitals in the state have closed. This is going to be more closures. You know, I talked to someone who had to drive up to Greenville because she had to deliver here because the rural hospital closed. 45-minute drive just to give birth in the United States of America. That is unacceptable, and that is what these Republicans voted for. But not only did they vote for it, they're afraid to show up to tell you why they voted for it. We invited them. You don't bite. You don't yell. You don't scream. You're supposed to ask questions. They're supposed to be said so politely, come. We were going to give you the pulpit with the courtesy of Pastor Mills. He would give the pulpit to anyone who comes and wants to engage in good faith. They didn't want to come. They haven't held their own town halls. They've been absent. That's not democracy. That's not the country that has an allegiance to the Constitution. Now, I want to say what we can do going forward and then open this up to your ideas. There was a reporter who was kind enough to come with us on Meg on the trip. She said, what do you hope to gain on this trip? I said, I want to listen to people. I want to listen to real people. You know, I've been tired. I get all these tweets and TikToks and Instagrams. I want to talk to actual people about what they actually want in this country. And a community like this, which is black and white and diverse, which represents the future. But I'll tell you what I think the future should be. I represent, like I said, a district which is inventing AI, inventing technology. We got 5 companies in my district over $1 trillion. Apple, Google, Intel, Tesla, Broadcom, NVIDIA. And no one thought an Indian American kid growing up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, was going to go represent Silicon Valley. No one thought that story was possible in America. But you know what? This country, they gave me a good public education. I didn't have to worry about going to a dentist. I had health care. I had to take way too many loans, but I got to finish my education. And then I had to fight, like anything, to be able to represent the people in Silicon Valley. And I lost, but I didn't give up because I believed in this country. And now I believe that the chances that I had to live my dream are the chances that every person should have in America. Not just because that's the right thing to do, but that's how we're going to build a country that's going to be leading the 21st century. I kind of laugh when Trump puts stuff out. Not in a mean-spirited way, just at the silliness of it. You know, he thinks, okay, we're going to go conquer Greenland. We're going to go conquer Panama. I mean, does anyone think that's what builds wealth in 21st century America? Does anyone think that's what builds power in 21st century America? How about we have people who are going to build new businesses, who are going to start new products and companies, who are going to invent new science? We're going to lead the world in curing disease. That's what's going to build this country. That's what's going to build economic prosperity. Not tariffs. That's 19th century. I mean, I wouldn't wish him on the 19th century, but just totally wrong century. The biggest critique of Donald Trump, he's got old ideas. I used to say 1980 as ideas. Now I say 19th century ideas. Democratic Party, we've got to be the party with 21st century ideas. We've got to be the party of the future. I call it a new economic patriotism. We will build 1,000 trade schools across America and in South Carolina to get people a pay job by the time they're done high school. We will work with industry to partner with those high schools so people have those skills and a path to employment. We will create AI academies across this country because your kids, your grandkids are going to need to know that technology to have the jobs of the future. We're going to bring investment to this community. I'm tired of all the billionaires and their investments still being in Silicon Valley and Massachusetts and New York and not seeing the hard work and the talent of people here at the HBCUs and the community colleges and the schools. We're going to bring that investment here. We're going to bring modern factories here. We're going to invest in the hospitals and the educational institutions here. We're going to have a 21st century Marshall Plan for America, an economic development plan for this country instead of spending billions of dollars on overseas wars. When people say, what does the Democratic Party stand for? The Democratic Party stands for the economic renewal of this country in every zip code of this country. And I believe if we do that, if we provide everyone with health care, if we provide people with child care $10 a day, if we provide people with education, K through 12, and community college, or 4 years degrees, or trade schools, if we make sure that people have investment so they can start businesses and they can have high-paying jobs in every community, I believe if we do that, we will bring this country together on a new economic patriotism that builds us in a positive direction, that has America lead the world, the beautiful country we are, with people from all parts of the world here, melding into one. Frederick Douglass called it the composite nation, and I will end with that. 1869, Frederick Douglass, enslaved for 20 years, finds freedom. And you know what he does after 1869? In 1869, you would think he would talk about all of the hardships of being enslaved, and he does. And you would think he would stand up for the rights of black Americans, and he does. But he does something more profound, because he recognizes that his voice, he was the most famous American at the time, even more than Lincoln, and he recognizes his voice has power. And he defends Chinese immigration in 1869. He says people from China should be allowed to come to the United States. Douglass showed more courage on defending immigration in 1869 than some of our own Democrats have in 2025. He defended Chinese immigration back in 1869, and he said, in the free air of America, the worst will be discarded, the best will survive, and America will become a nation of all nations, a nation with people from every walk of life, from every culture, a composite nation. My friends, that's what you represent in this church, in this room. That's what our possibility is as a nation. We need to seize that moment. We need to build that hopeful vision for this country, a new economic patriotism. And today in Greenville, let our work begin. You have shown your spirit by being here and showing up to do that. I'm so honored, and I look forward to having this conversation. Okay, now we're going to take your, and if you might, ma'am, state your name, and then whatever question you have, and Congressman Jackson, Pastor Mills, myself, they're happy to answer.
Can you hear me? All right, my name is Stephanie McClain. They call me Miss Jazzy. I've always been a voice for the people here in the community, so of course, thank you for just the opportunity to address the critical issues that are affecting Greenville and communities across the world. For those of you that may not know, I'm a director of operations for a local driving school, Drive Alert Training Academy. Effective September the 1st, South Carolina will be passing a hands-free, distracted driving law. That means no cell phones in your hand. I know some of y'all probably drove up here with your cell phones in your hand. You hear what I'm talking about? This is a critical issue for the nation of people. South Carolina, like where we live, where we work, where we play, we lead the nation with fatalities, with DUIs. Google it. Fatalities in the age group of 15 to 24. I want to know, what can we do as a nation of people as you're out here on these trails to really address the driving habits of what's happening globally? Because right here where we live, y'all see it every day, 85, Woodruff Road, wherever you work, live, and play, accidents. Somebody not going to make it home today for their families. And I think on a national level, we really need to address our driving habits as a nation of people. The other piece to my question is this bill, this ugly bill, the beautiful bill, I don't know, is it really being a cut? Or is it because of the stipulations that it's going to be considered a cut? Like, what are the work requirements for 19 to 65? Like, saying it's a cut, but is it a requirement? Like, I've not really read the law, but I want to help to bring some clarity that we understand, like, what percentage of people really actually need Medicaid? Thank you.
Well, thank you, ma'am, and I'll answer first. First of all, 90 million Americans need Medicaid. 90 million Americans. And Jonathan Jackson has said this a number of times, 50% of the births in this state are dependent on Medicaid, 50%. Secondly, this is going to affect not just those who may not fill out the paperwork on work requirements. They are cutting the funding to hospitals. This means hospitals are going to close. This means that people having services, particularly in rural America, are going to be denied those services. They are cutting the expansion of Medicaid, so people aren't going to be able to get on Medicaid if they are in between incomes, if they make too much to be considered poor, but don't make enough to be able to afford premiums. Then they've taken away the Obamacare subsidies. This is something not talked about. All of your healthcare premiums are going to go up starting 2026. Certainly if you're on the Obamacare exchange, but even if you aren't on the exchange, your premiums are going to go up because hospitals are going to start charging private insurance more. That's what this bill does. It's a tax increase on every health insurance for every American. And it's closing hospitals in this state, and it is closing services. And it's going to start in 2026. So it has devastating impacts. Now, I hear you on the driving. In fact, it is tragic for me, because every time I come to the state, I hear some story of someone who was killed or someone who knows someone who was killed on the roads. And I don't hear that when I go to other states. And I said to Drew, who I was driving with, I said, what is going on here? Every time we talk to someone, I don't want to embarrass people whose personal families. There are people in this room who have lost a close family member to a car accident. That should not be happening. So we need to make sure that we have laws against texting and driving and cell phone use in the car. We need to have strict laws against drinking and driving. But we also need to have the infrastructure on the roads, and to build roads that are safe. We saw a car accident coming up here. It was horrific. It looked like the family was okay. But someone in the car said, well, they've been talking about expanding these roads for the past years. Those roads aren't expanding. Well, every time you make a decision not to spend money on those roads, just know that you are putting someone's life at risk. And by the way, why are those roads not being expanded? Because the federal money isn't coming there, or the federal money is going to the governor, and the governor is choosing not to spend it in certain parts of the state. Let's speak plainly about that. The next Democratic president needs to be putting the money directly in the pockets of the cities and the communities, not giving it to governors who aren't going to be spending it in areas that need it the most. So that's my answer, ma'am, to your question. Congressman Jackson?
Yep. I want to be associated with everything the Congressman Khanna just said, but your state budget is roughly $40 billion. You receive almost $80 billion of Medicaid spending. So this is the fight you can't miss. It's going to hit you one way or the other. If you have a senior in your family that's in a nursing facility, or if you're pregnant, or you know someone, or if you know someone that has long-term disability, all that's coming through the Medicaid dollars. I would like to know from the representatives from here, why did they vote against it? They deserve to give you an honest conversation. That's why we're here today. You deserve the conversation. On the big ugly bill, another part, and there's many parts, we can go on through this for the evening. The taxes on the tips. Oh, wow, I'm gonna get my tips tax-free. Read the fine print. For the wealthiest people, the billionaires that are gonna receive the most tax benefits, call that $3 to $5 trillion, a whole bunch of money. That goes through. But at the same time, the taxes on the tip is up to $25,000, and your employer has to submit that, and you also become ineligible for the Medicaid. So you're gonna get it in one hand, take it away in the other, and it's only a 4-year tax abatement. It doesn't last forever. So you deserve to have the long-term conversation of what's actually in this bill. And that's just at the beginning part of it. The cuts to the Public Broadcasting Corporation. Some of us, I know a younger generation doesn't know about Sesame Street and Zoom and all the other good stuff. That funding, which was supposed to be commercial free, that you don't have to go sell things to pharmaceutical companies or to automotive or other things, is commercial free. That money has been cut. The money for the museum services, so you're gonna see museums that were staying open 1 day a week, 3 days a week, that money has been cut. So at the same time they cut all these essential services that we want, they gave tax breaks to the richest people. If there was no money, you shouldn't have given tax breaks to the rich. You should not balance this off the backs of the working poor.
I was going to say, obviously, these gentlemen are far more entrenched and can comment about what's happening on Capitol Hill. I do want to say thank you for raising the question about driving in South Carolina, and particularly in Greenville, where a baby was just laid to rest on yesterday. We cannot ignore the need for reform around driving under the influence, bring back Moms Against Drunk Driving, bring back Students Against Drunk Driving, and then maybe our teenagers could make it home from the store on the 4th of July and not still be in the hospital waiting for treatment. So these are needs, and we hope that folks are listening to us to hear that there is a need for this reform. Next question.
Thank you.
I hear you all talking about Medicaid, and properly so, and you run a litany of issues. I haven't heard you say anything about reparations. When you're talking to black people and you're talking to justice-minded people in this country, the fact that black people built this country and have yet to have that acknowledged, not only acknowledged, but to be compensated for it. My question is whether the Democratic Party will, one, add that to its litany, and two, whether or not you will support the H.R. 40 reparations bill that has been introduced in the House by Summer Lee, Representative Summer Lee, and in the Senate by Senator Cory Booker. We demand reparations, reparations now. That's the measure. That's the measure of the respect and the honor of the black vote.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate your bringing up H.R. 40. I was the first, or if not the first, one of the first non-black members to get on H.R. 40 when Sheila Jackson Lee introduced that in 2017. So I have been consistently for the bills for reparations. I have consistently supported the idea that we have to correct the historical injustice of 250 years of slavery and 100 years of Jim Crow. And part of my work and outreach in my own capacity in my district to get technology companies to be creating jobs here and investing here is all because I believe there is a huge moral debt to the black community. But we need to make that not just private sector initiatives, we need to have a government-funded commission on that issue. And I have been supportive of it from the day I got into Congress.
Give Roe a round of applause on that. I too have signed on to H.R. 40, and I make it very clear to my colleagues that this was a nation of Native Americans, and they experienced genocide. We know the Cherokees and the Lumbees and the Seminoles. We know our history. My grandfather, Robinson, my uncle Noah, they went back to their original ethnicity of Native American. I mean, that's so much in our blood that's not talked about enough in our culture. So those are genocide that happened on this land that we should always be mindful of. Secondly, there were persons that came to this nation that have been kidnapped from Africa. That's a part of this history that comes through Charleston and through New York City on Wall Street. Let us be mindful of that in St. Augustine. And then we've gone from being called black business to Negro business, colored business to minority business, all the way up to diversity business in 2016. Now they've taken out the on-ramp for diversity, e pluribus unum. Out of many we're one. They've taken out equity, meaning equal opportunities. They've taken out inclusivity for handicap ramps and people that need different forms of accessibility. They've taken it out and they've tried to make diversity, equity, and inclusion a bad word. We've started a caucus for diversity, equity, and inclusion. President Trump can't take aspirational words out of our mouth. You cannot make diversity illegal because it's not a law. It's an aspiration. It's a goal. So yes, I stand with you on reparations. And last point, it ties into the funding for the museums. Any person, any country that's been successful in getting reparations, you have to start with a museum to document it. We've got a marvelous edifice down in Washington, D.C. that's less than 9 years old. What does President Trump do with his executive order? He says the Museum of African American History has improper ideology. He's trying to dictate what items are in the museum. You and I did not create the sins of the nation when it began, but we can correct its future. We're at the crossroads between history and destiny. I believe in a better, brighter future for South Carolina. The last point, if he takes off the idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, where women have access to basketball and women have access to medical school education and African Americans and Latinos have those doors closed, you have to talk about reparations. How do you make a people whole that were hurt systemically by segregation, by redlining, by denying us the GI Bill? So yes, that is a fight for us, and we're going to make it a priority. But I want to leave by saying thank you. Every person that wants to come through South Carolina and have any of our time, make them sign on the line. That's what we want. Say what you want. We're not going to, they say what they want in D.C. all the time. That's going to be what South Carolina is going to champion. And let me tell you, it's good for the nation. It helps everyone when we're honest about our past. We can live a better future.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. My name is Verdell Evans. I'm a born and raised citizen here in the city of Greenville. And I want you all to know, and I want you all to address it, that Donald Trump did not win the presidency by by a majority Republican vote. 15% of African American men who are not registered Republicans voted for Donald Trump. Not only that, the governor of this state has already made some statements that no one in our state house has addressed. When he made the statement, and I called him out on it, and nobody still has even addressed it. He said that he's waiting, and he's determined to make South Carolina a Republican state to the point that they have to use dogs to find Democrats. What are you going to do? Because it's in the news. How are we going to address these problems? And not only that, from this point on, from this day, address everybody, regardless of their party. We need to bring people together, irregardless of Republicans and Democrats. We need to bring people together because the Republicans are sick and tired of the Republican Party's antics and semantics and the cowardness of following Donald Trump on every lead without saying anything. Thank you.
Well, sir, you're absolutely right that the Republicans are starting to get sick and tired of Donald Trump's antics. You know how I know that? Because this week I introduced a bill with Thomas Massey calling for the full release of the Epstein files. You know, remember Donald Trump promised that on the campaign trail? Well, guess what? Every Democrat is on my bill. And 10 MAGA Republicans are on the bill. And this is splitting Donald Trump's base because they're seeing that it was total rhetoric. He is protecting rich and powerful men at the expense of abandoned, abused women and young girls. And the American people are catching on that he has no desire to actually be transparent and stand on the side of the people. So we need to fight Donald Trump, but we need to fight him smartly, strategically, to destroy the base that he has built by saying that our party, the Democratic Party, is actually on your side. Now, first of all, for black men, I don't think we can blame the election on black men. There were a lot of other people who voted for Donald Trump. You know, 85% is better than almost every other demographic. But we need to make sure that we actually are earning the votes of black men. What do we need to do? We need a real economic agenda for black men and black women. How are they going to have good paying jobs to support a family? How are they going to make sure that once they graduate high school, they actually have a job waiting for them at a company, or they're able to go to college without having a huge debt? How are they going to build wealth in an AI and digital future? What are the opportunities that we're creating for them to have economic stability and economic ownership? If we have a real economic agenda in this country where we say you want to build wealth, you want to take care of your family, you want to build wealth in your community, then we have the better vision for how you're going to do that, and here's the concrete pathway, then we're going to win back that vote. They voted against us because they didn't think that we had enough of an economic plan for them, that we didn't recognize how high the rents had become, how tough it had become in terms of owning a house, how difficult it was to have a job that actually paid enough to support a family and have some ownership. Democrats need to own the economic message again. Donald Trump sold a platinum plan, telling young black men they were going to get wealthy. How did that work out? How is that working out? We will sell a real plan. We will offer real solutions, real pathways to building wealth. Take it from the guy who's seeing all the wealth being created in Silicon Valley. That means education. It means learning a trade. It means understanding enough about technology. People in this country are smart, and they're hungry, and they're desperate for an authentic vision, for leadership that's actually going to make their lives better. They're tired of the blame, and they're tired of the rhetoric, and they're tired of having politicians who know how to speak in fancy ways and may sound charismatic, but don't actually have plans
to improve their lives. It's time for substance over flash, for healing over division, for a true patriotism as opposed to a xenophobic nationalism. That's what this country needs, and that's what the Democratic Party can provide. And if we provide that, then it'll be the Republicans who will be having to look for themselves in this state, because the Democrats are going to be able to take it over. Jonathan?
I agree.
Pastor?
Hello. First, I am very excited to see a grassroots assembly as such, because our community, we're owed it. We should have had it years ago. What happens is that a lot of times people come to our community and the only time we see anybody is when they want to vote, right before the vote. And then no one does listen to our concerns, which is why we're in the position we are in now. As a veteran educator, I would like for you guys to speak to our community about the fact that Medicaid impacts schools. What are our public schools supposed to do now that Medicaid is cut? Because that money from Medicaid is what pays for my special ed kids to get the services that they have. And now I've been told that we can't find the money for it. What am I supposed to do when I go back into the schools and our teachers, and we're working 2 and 3 jobs just to maintain, and then we still can't get a cut on student loans? But yet we're still forced to have to go and get a degree in order to be able to make more money and then be more in debt. Speak to our community about what are our kids supposed to do if the services are cut and we are not getting the money, but the voucher folks are getting 2.15% more than public school. And we're functioning at 1.0%. How are we supposed to survive for the year when I don't know if I'm gonna have copy paper, let alone pencils? When I fund my classroom because my parents can't afford to fund their own children to come to school. I want somebody to speak to public education, because see, vouchers are being spoken about. They're all over the Capitol, all down to Columbia, everybody talking about vouchers, and these people are getting all. So as a community, people need to hear this. How is it impacting them, 2-mile radius around them? Because see, you could talk about what's happening across the nation, but I want to know what's happening now here in my community and what people are going to do about it. I'm tired of our kids coming to school and not having what they have. I understand, you're right, we should have trades. Our kids deserve to have trades, but we can't have trades on this side. But if you go across Wade Hampton, they got all the trades, they got all the resources that they can have. And on our side, it's always iffy. And no one's gonna tell me anything different because I've been doing this for 30 years. How? How can that be? How can that be that our kids are gonna continue to struggle? People can't even get housing. Teachers can't get housing. I have teachers who still live with their families, not because they want to. They live with them because they can't afford the housing. But we get up with a degree every day and work our butts off for these kids and for our communities because we believe in them. Who believes in us? Who believes in public education anymore? Who's going to fight for public education? Because public education is what's going to give us economic empowerment. Public education is what's going to change the way that our communities are being run. I would like for you to speak to that.
Well, all right. Where's she going? Don't go but so far. Okay, I need to get to know you a little better. So that is why we are in South Carolina today. Why did your representatives vote against your interests? Hello? Yeah, we're not going to leave it right here. We're going to get out of this hole together. But these are the arguments we were having in Washington, D.C. last week when your representatives would not give you a town hall and would not explain to you. What is the solution now? I don't want to fix the blame. I want to fix the problem. The margin of people that did not vote in South Carolina returned those representatives to Washington, D.C. The margin of people that are unregistered to vote sent those people back to Washington, D.C. How do you fix South Carolina? We overwhelm the polls and get some new leadership. The balance of that budget, the representatives came from South Carolina. You have the power to make the difference. Why are we here today? So we can have an honest conversation. This vote took place in the middle of the night. They had us start on the vote at 11 p.m. And then it went all through the middle of the night. Now and I see some of my peers out here, I go to sleep now the time I used to go out to a party. I don't like going out at 9 o'clock. I'm heading in at 9 p.m. They had us return to work to vote at 11 p.m. for 2 nights in a row, all night long. We were sleeping in chairs, sleeping on the floor, because your representatives went home, went to sleep in Washington, D.C., and voted for something that most of them did not read, that did all of these disastrous cuts. The good news is it's delayed almost 14 months before the most onerous things start kicking in. We can repeal this after we take back the House. We have the margin of victory. We're on the right side. We want you to get every other neighbor, wake them up. People don't know what happened.
Ma'am, will you come out? Just come out. Let me just say this. As a teacher on the front lines for 30 years, who've been using your own money to get paper and supplies for kids, and been teaching our kids despite all the odds, you are a true American hero. Let's give her a round of applause. Now, I'll tell you what's so sad about what's going on. We spend on the Department of Education about $100 billion, and they want to close that. We spend over $1 trillion on wars overseas with the Pentagon budget. How about we take 10% of that money, 10% of that money, and put it in our public schools? We double the budget, and it'd be a far better investment in our kids, far better investment in our future, in our security. How about if we took 10% of the tax cuts that they're giving to billionaires, $4 trillion of tax cuts to billionaires, and if we took 10% of that and put it in our public schools, what do you think would grow the economy more? What would you think would do more for communities like ours? This is not a value, this is not a matter of budgets. It's a matter of values. It's a matter of values. This is a Congress that wants to have bloated defense budgets for overseas wars and tax breaks for billionaires. What we need is a government that's going to tax wealth and make sure that we're investing in our public schools and healthcare here at home. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. But the way we're going to get there, as Jonathan said, is to be active, to demand better of our politics. It is our politics that are failing our people. You know, people say America is going on, and I say, yeah, it is. You know why? Because of people like you. Because they're teachers, and they're doctors, and they're nurses, and they're bus drivers, and they're scientists who are doing incredible things, even though the politics is so screwed up. Imagine what this country could be if the politicians were on the side of the people. If we actually started to pass policies to strengthen public schools and healthcare. That's what we're fighting for.
Thank you so much for everybody for being here today. Thank the three of you, and thank you everyone else for coming out, because no three men can change the world. It's going to need a community behind them, and so I appreciate all y'all being out here too. About a month ago, I met a Canadian man. He was a big rock climber. He was a big outdoorsman. He said he broke his neck twice. One time he broke his neck in Canada, and it cost $0 for his medical care. The other time he broke his neck in America, and it cost him $100,000. About 10 years ago, my uncle went to Italy. He fell down and broke his arm. They didn't charge him. The Italian healthcare system took care of this man who's not even a citizen of their country because they believe in that. And yet here in America, we find people spending hundreds to thousands of dollars every month for life-saving medicines or medical services. And so when I talk to many people that are inclined to vote for us in that look at the value systems of healthcare systems that operate around the world. Their humanity says that's correct. They want that system to be introduced here, but they don't think it's possible. And the number one question is, how can we pay for it? So if we want to move into a world where a country where we take care of every person just for the inherent value of being a human being, how do we get there? How do we make people who don't think it's possible come around and believe it is possible?
We get there by showing that Medicare for all is not just moral, it makes economic sense. The reason we don't have Medicare for all is not because we can't afford it, it's because big insurance companies, big pharmaceutical companies, and big hospitals spend millions of dollars on campaigns and lobbyists to block that legislation. It's about big money that's sucking out profits from the healthcare system. But if you had Medicare for all, you would save money. The reason is that Big Pharma is ripping off every American. They're charging way more for your drugs than they do for people in other parts of the world. The reason is that hospitals are ripping off the Medicare system, charging huge facility fees. The reason is that private insurance with Medicare Advantage is ripping off the taxpayers. They're making it seem that people are sicker than they are to suck money out of the system. With Medicare for all those costs go down. You save money with Medicare for all. And you tax people who are wealthy. We have a Medicare system. People pay into that Medicare system. Raise your hand if you're on Medicare. Raise your hand if you like it. All right. Well, we got to improve it too. We got to improve it with dental and vision and hearing. But the point is that people pay a small fee in Medicare that's far less than they pay for private insurance, and it saves money for this country. So, and by the way, it allows people then to get wage increases, because instead of companies paying all this money to private insurance, they get to pay those money in wages, and the government is providing the health care insurance. We have to make the economic argument. If every other industrialized country can provide health care for all, don't you think the richest country in the world can do that?
I do. I absolutely do.
So, how many people here, I see you're giving me honest answers, how many people here would support Medicare for all? Well, that pretty much answers the question around here. I don't understand it, and yet all these politicians so fearful we can't be for Medicare for all. Let's see the show of hands one more time. How many are for Medicare for all? How many are opposed to it? Be brave. I mean, is this a close call, Pastor? We got to fight for that. And by the way, health care, I think, is the #1 issue in this state.
Yep. Hey, and I wish we want to come back so we can continue this dialogue. But for example, I was also an educator at one point, but if you do the back of the envelope math, if you say medical school education is $100,000 a year per pupil, 4 years, $400,000. For 25,000 potential doctors, if the government paid $400,000 over the next 4 years each, that would cost $10 billion. For 25,000 doctors. That is 1% of $1 trillion. So I want you to be clear on the order of magnitude that they're giving away to tax breaks. But you're not hearing about something forward-thinking like Congressman Khanna is talking about. How do we create more doctors? How do we raise teacher pay? How do we have more housing? It's not on their minds at all. That's why we're in South Carolina, to wake up the people, to go door to door. We've done this before to get everyone engaged that cares about these issues.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Lee Booker. And the last time I spoke publicly, it was on September the 11th, 2024, and I spoke to a public gathering at a public college in Charleston, South Carolina. And the words that came out of my mouth, they was not profane, they was not disrespectful, nor was they fighting or threatening. But yet I was, at that moment, in that time, removed from that public gathering and cast into prison here in South Carolina for 6 months. That has happened on live TV, on South Carolina Education TV, based on the words that came out my mouth. So I'm gonna ask Representative Rowe. I know Rowe. How you doing, Rowe?
I'm doing good.
I spoke to you briefly when you came down in January 2024 when they brought Joe Biden on the first tour.
Yes.
Yes. We had a state dinner today, state. Before I tell you, or before I ask the questions, I want to tell you that I am a native of Greenville County, this county right here, right? I was born and raised in this county. At age 17, I fell victim to my own madness. I had some things going on. I had a dysfunctional family situation. But a judge, a family court judge, saw my family court situation, and she sought to remedy that by ordering that the state of South Carolina provide these cares for me, whole lot of cares, right? One of the main cares was to place me inside of a military academy called the Marine Institute, because she wanted me to be able to have that structure, that discipline, that education, that guidance, to be a productive member of society. I don't know what happened, but I know that the state of South Carolina, this state right here, my state failed me. They dropped the ball because that never happened. I wound up falling victim to my own madness, running with the own crowd, and I committed some armed robberies, right? And they cast me into prison for 20 years, right? And I served 18 and a half years, and I maxed out. I've been doing good ever since. No problems except what happened when I went to the Citadel. But the reason why I'm here today is because I want to talk about something. The representative right here, Jackson, he talks about honesty and how we need to have an honest conversation. We definitely need to have an honest conversation. We cannot build anything on a rotten foundation. True. You cannot. We cannot have no kind of equality, justice, freedom out of something that was, when it was created, was never intended for that at all. So that's the issue that I brought forth, and I'm gonna tell you how I presented it, but I was cast, when I tell you cast, into prison and silenced for 111 days out of that 6-month sentence. My wife and I had just came back from Aruba. That was my first time out of the States. I was in the island. It was beautiful out there. As soon as I come back to the United States and go to a public college and speak, and this is the treatment I received from my own government. My questions was this. Now, I don't mean no threat to nobody who done pledged the oath, but my statements may threaten that, but I don't mean no harm by that. But my question is this right here. We all know that we don't live in slavery no more. That white supremacist stuff that went on, we don't live in that no more, do we? Don't suppose to, do we? But we still seeing all this injustice, still fighting for equality, still fighting for justice. I'm 40 years old. My whole existence, I've been hearing about this, and it's been racial differences and all about equality, and we fighting for struggle. We always, every 4 years, we elect the president, then we always elect them every 6 years, every 2 years, trying to get them to fight for us. It's because the foundation is rotten. And it gotta be, if we're gonna deal with honesty, we gotta confront that. We gotta confront that. Because if slavery is no longer in existence, then why is we still going off a legal order that was created by slavery? Only one man sat at that table. Only one man, a white man. He wasn't there. He created a document that was gonna govern people. The people included man and woman. So it should have been women there too. So,
excuse me, sir, do you mind?
Yeah, I question, okay, my question to you is this right here. With your new patriotic economic plan, I'm on board with you. I wrote you a 3-page letter. I gave it to your staff. My question to you right here, if you got a vision for us, when I say us, I'm talking about the people. When I say the people, I'm talking about not just black people now. I'm talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you got a plan for us going forward, we want to know how you're going to balance the ticket. And we want to know, do you really have our interests at heart? And you'll be able to prove that by
endorsing certain stories. Keep your eyes awake, because when you came on, you was talking about how, I don't know if you know this, but Gavin Newsom told me that stories matter. Stories matter. When my story come out, the American people, y'all will see my name is Patrick Lee Booker. So my question to you is, going forward for the project, for going forward for 2028, looking forward for 2028, the potential presidency for 2028, would you consider somebody who authored it and created it? That's the question. I'm asking the question. Did you hear me? The question is, if you got your eye open for 2028, will you consider the person who authored Project 2028? You ain't seen it yet, but I done put it in the hands of your staff, and I want you to look at that. And I'm gonna leave here today. But before I leave, I want y'all to know that I sat right there and I recorded everything, right? And everybody spoke about how we need all this change. And everybody's talked over the change that's sitting directly in front of you right there on that podium.
Well, let me just say this. Thank you for speaking out on free speech. And I think it's unconscionable that you were arrested for speaking your mind. That's not America, if that was why you were arrested. And I fundamentally believe that we need to make sure that people like you, your stories are heard. That's why I'm here to listen, not just to talk. And I certainly will read what you have to say in terms of how to build trust with the foundation. And if that's your letter, I'm happy to read it. But look, all I can say is I don't know what it's like to be black in America, but I do know what it's like to be a person with dark skin in America. And I do know what it's like to be overlooked in a community in Bucks County, Pennsylvania that was 99% white. And I do know what it's like to lose and be discounted. When I was doing an internship, they told me that I could never get elected to anything in this country. But I defied them through persistence and a belief in this country. So people have to look at people's hearts, not what they say. They have to look at their souls of, do they get it? Do they understand the challenges of race in America? Do they understand the challenges of global color line in this world? My grandfather spent 4 years in jail with Gandhi fighting for India's independence. I get the challenges of oppression. I get in my blood the challenges of racism. And I have a vision that is going to build economic security, dignity for everyone. And I think people have to not just look at what say or stories, they got to look in people's souls and understand if that's true.
Very well, thank you so much. Well, since there was a lot of people trying to rush me off, they were saying ask the question, let's ask the most relevant question right here in South Carolina. We have the first black, well, not the first black candidate, but we have a black who's running for governor of this state. This state does not have its 249th birthday of this country. We want to know what's your prospects of this brother right here becoming governor. We want to know what's your prospects.
I endorsed him before he endorsed himself.
Word. We appreciate the endorsement. We want to know what the prospects is in South Carolina, in this racist state of South Carolina. That's what we want to know.
The prospects depend not on me. They depend not on Jonathan Jackson. They depend on people like you. Let me ask you that. You know, you've done something remarkable with your life. You went through incarceration. You overcame that. You're standing here. You have the audacity to stand with two members of Congress. They're telling you, sit down, ask a question. You're going on. You got no fear. You're claiming your dignity as a citizen. Go work hard for him. Talk to the people who don't vote. Talk to people who've been in the jails and now are out. Talk to the gang members. Talk to the people who are not registered. You get those folks out. You get those folks out, he's going to be the governor.
I'm really short, sorry. My name is Sarah Davenport. I'm no one special. I'm just a concerned mom and citizen. I do want to say thank you so much to all of our educators in the room for giving all of yourselves to our children. My children are in public school. I have an autistic daughter, I know what it is to worry about your kids going into the classroom and what they're going to be learning and if they're going to be getting credible, educations now. And that's really hard. And I just appreciate every one of you going out of your own pocket to make sure that our kids have the resources they need. So thank you. Sorry. So for me, my concern is if you're trying to help people learn to vote, how the correct ways are to vote, and really see people come and show up, what are we doing about the widespread voter interference at the local level? What are we doing about gerrymandering? What are we doing about those things that people don't even really know what these words mean? I myself didn't fully understand it until like 15 years ago what gerrymandering was. And it wasn't until I had to learn about politics, and much to my chagrin, because to me, growing up in Panama City, Florida, with a very Republican family, I was so sick of it that I didn't want anything to do with it. But now I'm having to use my voice to rectify all of the stuff that unfortunately we've allowed to happen because people have been afraid to use their voices or they just weren't given the correct information to start with. So what are we doing about gerrymandering? What are we doing about these special elections happening at 4 a.m. that people aren't being told about or having to wait hours because they know people can't wait outside without water, condemning people for providing water? What are we doing for those things? The gerrymandering, explaining it to people and making it palatable, making it easy to digest and understand without making people feel looked down on. These are things Democrats have been plagued with. And so these are real questions on how we are going to do that to make sure that we win a fair election. A fair election.
Well, you're doing it as a white mom to come to a gathering hosted by churches that are largely black and speak about...
I grew up in churches that were largely black.
And to speak about voting rights, oppression, is what we need in this country, to build a broader coalition, to speak out about that. I mean, the reality is that voting rights have been taken away in this country. Mm-hmm. The polling places are being lines for black Americans are an hour longer than they are for white Americans in the black South. That's the reality of the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. The reality is, as you pointed out, that black Americans are being kicked off the polls if they don't come for 2 or 3 elections. The reality is, in Texas, they're engaged in gerrymandering.
5 seats.
5 seats, rigging the elections. So what can we do? We have to fight with everything we have. We need people like you to speak up.
Are Dems going to fight? Are they going to fight for the people, not just say a bunch of fancy words? Because that's what people are getting upset about, is that we hear a lot of things, but we don't see the action. We don't see the fire behind it, because these are real live things that have real life consequences to everybody here. This is education. This is just a swarm of things that we're having to deal with every day in our day-to-day news. It's an onslaught, and people are tired, and they want to know people are fighting for them.
Absolutely. That's why Jonathan and I are here, going into red districts, taking the fight aggressively into the Republican districts. But we have to understand the odds and the stakes and the challenges as we fight. We lost the House. We lost the Senate. We lost the presidency. We don't have the Supreme Court. So the question is, how do we fight?
Yes.
I'm not going to give you false promises. We are not going to be able to outvote the Republicans in the House of Representatives until we take back the House of Representatives.
That's true.
We're not going to be able to stop them in the Senate. We're not going to be able to stop them in the Supreme Court. Yes, we have to have litigation at the DNC, but what we have to do is build the infrastructure in 2025.
Right.
Build the infrastructure across this country so that we can overwhelm people at the polls. And what members of Congress have to do is use every power in our disposal to fight and take them on.
And to protect people, to make them feel safe to go vote, to make people
Absolutely.
feel like their voices can be heard. But I'm going to follow up, and then I'll be done. My last follow-up is there are people like me, parents and creatives and survivors, people that are creating truth-based toolkits. We have Indivisible. We have the People's Sick Day that's happening. These are tools that people, you and me, everyone out here, we're putting the work in to do. Are you going to stand behind us? Are you going to give us a platform? Are you going to amplify those voices, these grassroots systems that people are putting into place to help each other? Are you going to amplify that, stand behind that, make it more accessible?
Absolutely. I've partnered with Indivisible for a lot of, in fact, I think we partnered for Indivisible for some of these town halls.
Right.
So,
But still, a lot of people don't know what these programs are. They're seeing bits and pieces of it on Instagram and TikTok and things like that. But we need to be having more information available to things like this alongside understanding
how did you
the
hear
voting.
about this town hall? How did you find
Because
it?
I went to the Dim Women's Convention.
I appreciate it. Well, look, I'm happy to afterwards talk to you and get your ideas for how we amplify this better. But I love your fight. I love that you're speaking out for voting rights. I think we need everyone in our party to speak out about that. And your courage and your passion is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
I just want to say thank you for coming. I want to say thank you to the educator in the back. Thank you for the sacrifices that you make. We're very cognizant of it. This is out of our district, but this is our business. We're here because we're standing on your side. And so we want to make a commitment to come back. Maybe we'll have a venue that can have a screen, and we can go over more detailed information, leave you with handouts, leave you with information, call the representatives. And I'd like to see more people run for local office. You've got to take the state reps, the state senates, and the good news is you have the numbers.
I want to say something really quick also to the educator in the back corner. Mountain View Baptist Church is proud to be a host for this event, but there are 19 to 100 by churches being re-engaged and involved in after-school programs and supporting teachers at the work that you're doing. So don't shy away from reaching out to us. I put my colleagues on notice tonight that we'll be available to you.
Finally, well, good evening, everybody. First, giving honor to God, all elected officials, as well as all constituents and individuals here this evening. My name is, I'm Dr. Emmett Vaught. I am a native of Greenville County, District 25. Proud product at that. And might I say, Congressman, I love that you said that healthcare is the biggest issue in this state. And I too believe that. Maybe not only exclusive to the state, but to the nation abroad as well. Now, as a doctor, a professor, and nonprofit leader, I see firsthand how preventative health care is often out of reach for our underserved communities. Now, preventative care represents about 2 to 3% of the total United States healthcare spending, okay? And now that's roughly $200 to $300 billion of $4.5 trillion. How do you propose to ensure that preventative health care is integrated and accessible to working class communities, more specifically those in the communities like the one I came from and I call home, and not just acute care and emergency care?
Well, you clearly have done your homework and you know the math. But the point you raise is why we need Medicare for all. Because right now, what happens is there are 20% of people in this state, African Americans, are not insured, 12% overall not insured. They end up in the emergency rooms because they don't want to go to a doctor and have those out-of-pocket costs. There are people who are insured who don't want to go to a doctor because they're afraid what the prescriptions are going to cost. They're afraid of their copays. If we had Medicare for all, and if we funded, as Jonathan said, as Representative Jackson said, more primary care doctors, more nurses, more hospitals in rural communities, then we would actually save money because people would get their cholesterol medicine or their diabetes medicine before they have a heart attack or before they need amputation. We are not only in a system that is hurting people, we have long-term more costs as a nation. So who's benefiting? The big insurance companies, the big pharmaceutical companies, the hospital executives. That's why the system doesn't change. It's hurting people, it's hurting the country, it's helping them. It's time to stand up to those interests. It's time to stand up to the profiteering in the healthcare system so that we can have Medicare for all, which was going to lead to more preventive care.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your commitment to your community. Thank you, Ro. I just have to do the back of the envelope, some math, because it was trillions of dollars that were passed on. So let me, if I can, make you my classroom for one moment. 1 million seconds is 11.7 days. 1 million seconds. 1 billion seconds is 31 years. 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. They just passed out trillions of dollars to the wealthiest people. That's why we're here. You talk about a hospital. Can you imagine for $100 million, we can build a state-of-the-art hospital right here in the state of South Carolina. So 100 million divided by $1 trillion, with that $1 trillion, we could have made 10,000 new hospitals. So I want you to be clear that there is enough money. It's been poorly allocated. That's why we're here to say we can right this ship, because we just need to have more humane priorities.
Thank you, both Congressman Jackson and Khanna, for coming to South Carolina from your respective states to talk to us, because our congressman will not talk to us. I have 3 questions, and I'm gonna ask them. I wrote them out so I don't take 30 minutes. First, Dr. King said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Right now, too many Democrats are holding office and not delivering real results. They're quiet when it matters. So how do we hold people in our own party accountable when they have the power to act and choose not to? Secondly, Trump claims to be the biggest supporter of HBCUs, which I'm a 2-time graduate of HBCUs, and he claims they're giving the most money to HBCUs, which you know is not true. HBCUs are still underfunded and still struggling to even have, basic needs on campuses met. So what is Congress doing currently, and what will Congress continue to do to fund our HBCUs? And lastly, millions of us are drowning in student loan debt. I personally have $150,000 in student loan debt, as do 43 million Americans. Folks did everything we were told to do to achieve the American dream, and we're still buried in payments. I just bought my first house 2 years ago at the age of 36. And I say that because student loans kept me from buying a house because I had too much debt to income ratio. And so what is Congress doing to make sure that when individuals go to college, they can graduate, have debt, and still buy a home? Thank you.
Well, I had to take out over $150,000 of student loans, so I understand how difficult that is. And that is why I've advocated for forgiving student loans for people in the working and middle class. And the reality is you can't build economic security and economic wealth if for the first 20, 30 years of your life after college, all you're doing is paying off loans. How are you going to buy a house? This is one of the reasons the racial wealth gap is still 10 to 1, because people go to college, but then they're stuck with all of this debt. And that is why we need to, as a Democratic Party, have clearly as our platform the forgiving of student loans for working and middle class families. We need to be for free public education, right? Free public college, and free trade schools, 1,000 trade schools. For the HBCUs, we not only need to fund them, we need to bring industry to them so that people who are HBCU graduates are getting jobs, they're getting hired, they're getting funded. They have all the talent, they have all the ambition, they have all the hard work, but they don't have the networks, they don't have the opportunities that other places have. So we need to fund them, we need to double that funding, but we also need to partner with the private sector and technology at these HBCUs to provide people with the opportunities for economic growth. Now, your last point about people staying silent in our party, I think it's time for a fresh and new generation. I think it's time for a generation that is unafraid. An unafraid generation that says no to PAC money, that says no to big money, that says yes to Medicare for all, that says no to the bombing in Gaza, that says yes to raising wages to $15, that says yes to free public college, that says yes to forgiving student loans, that says yes to building 3 million new affordable homes. We need to have a bold vision for this party. And if we have a bold vision, we're going to inspire people. But what happens is Jonathan and I and a few others, we put forward these ideas. And then they say, well, that may be too much. You can't do that. You can't tax the billionaires. I've got more billionaires in my district than anyone. I'm telling you, you can tax them. The guy representing the district is saying tax them. And so we look weak because we are not willing to fight for our convictions. I believe a next generation of politicians who are not more of the same, who are not the status quo, who are something different. That's what Andy McDaniel says. We don't need more of the same. We need a different kind of Democratic Party, a different kind of person, someone willing to take on the special interest and put forth a bold agenda that centers the working and middle class and has people have a real economic shot. That's what we need to do, and we need to call out those in our party who are not playing ball with that new vision.
I agree.
Hello, thank you all for being here, to all the elected leaders. I'm Dr. Christy Middleton. I'm a nurse practitioner here in Greenville, South Carolina, and I'm a member of this church where my lead pastor is Pastor Stacy Mills. Thank you for your leadership. 2 quick questions. Why does it take a Donald Trump presidency for the Democratic Party to try and develop an economic plan for the black community or any agenda? Like, black people, we have to watch you guys like say things like, well, we're gonna do a DACA bill for this particular group of people. We're gonna do an anti-hate crime bill for Jews. We're gonna do an anti-hate crime bill for Asians. But when black people ask for something, this is not given, okay? Question number 2. To my leaders, to local leaders, have you tried to find out what reasons black Americans did not vote, what changed their minds, and what is the agenda for the black community moving forward? What are you planning to do about it? Like, have you tried to find out why we changed our minds with the Democratic Party? Have you tried to find out why we changed our mind? Is there anything on your platform outside of economic development that made us change our minds and made us stay home?
Well, I'll let the pastor answer, and I want to hear your views and Jonathan's views. What I would say is there have been Democrats, like Jonathan's father, Reverend Jackson, who's been pushing for an economic and moral agenda for the black community since the 1980s. The problem is their agendas have been sidelined. Their agendas have not been adopted. Had those agendas been adopted, had some of the things even Bernie Sanders was talking about in terms of Medicare for all and a raise of the wage been adopted, we may not have the return of Donald Trump. And the difference now is not that suddenly people are saying let's develop a black economic agenda or an economic agenda. The difference is that those of us who've been saying that suddenly have a voice because people realize that the status quo isn't working. So this is the time to develop it and flesh it out. And in addition to economic development, I think it has to involve healthcare as a human right. I think it has to involve housing so people can get housing. I think it has to involve rent not going up higher than inflation. I think it has to involve a total defense for black history, not erasing black heroes, black civil rights. I think it has to say we support the H.R. 40 reparations bill. I think it has to say that we are for making sure people aren't having huge debt when they're going to college. It has to be about not spending money blowing up innocent women and children in Gaza and foreign wars, because people, the black community cares about human rights, not just here at home, but also abroad. I think that is the agenda, but I'm here to listen what you think the agenda is and what Pastor Mills thinks the agenda is.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you for being a part of this church and being pastors from Pastors United for Action, the moderators of the associations are engaged in doing the hard work. We're not waiting for an agenda to come from folks who've been elected. We're putting together the agenda and handing it to them and asking for their support. Listen, this may not get much applause, and I'm not here for the applause. Mountain View Baptist Church for 117 years has been place-based in this community, doing the hard work of educating its children, sending them to college, and supporting them on next-level leadership opportunities. That's the kind of agenda that gets things done. That's why we bought all this property around us, and we did that together collectively from the impact of people in this community believing that we don't have to wait for other people to do for us what we can do for ourselves. That's why we're here tonight. That's why these pastors have come together. Stop giving us the hard way down the road and pray for us so that we can do the work that we've been called to do. And that is, if my people who are called by my name, I'm in a pulpit, I'm going to preach, that's who I am. So I want you to understand it is necessary for us to roll up our sleeves and do the work together. We may not all agree. And from a bipartisan standpoint, we have a difficult job in churches to preach a theology that unites a people that are divided at home. So tonight, we're asking you to get together so that we can be supported to do the work that we've been set out to do. I don't just study in my office Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, although those are essential. I also study what's happening at county council, at city council, at the state level, at the national level, so that when I stand here, I'm more informed and can better inform the people who are trusting me to lead. So I'm asking for that support from our community. We're not the ones who are going to jump out there and just do something, build something so that people can say we did it. It's got to be the right thing. It's got to be measurable, and it has to be something that we can duplicate and sustain in the future. I believe in generational wealth being passed. These are a chance to put it back together again, and it starts with us unifying ourselves, putting our dollars together, spending where we want to spend, not where we're told to spend, and eating a little bit healthy. I apologize. This is your platform. We've given it to you tonight, but you asked, I've answered.
Thank you for your answer, Pastor.
Yeah, just to follow up on what the pastor said, and seek my face and humble themselves and turn from their wicked ways. And then,
Preach, Jackson. Preach, Ro.
Thank you.
I am somebody. I am somebody. We are somebody. My name is Lisa Bailey. I still answer to Sweeney, that those who know me is Miss Sweeney. My pastor is Pastor Wendell Jones. He is also my state house representative. And he is one of the ones that has been doing some amazing teaching to hold leaders accountable. So when men such as yourself stand before me, I judge the fruit that come out of your mouth based upon the teachings that I'm receiving as a leader that's standing here. So my question to you two guys, you can see the shift in this room tonight. I know you sense the energy when you walked in this room tonight. And I want to tell both of y'all in y'all faces that we're getting ready to flip Greenville. I don't talk just to talk, okay? My fruit line up with what I say. But what you two have done has made them two clowns in D.C. look real dumb, which we know that, okay? My question to you two, what is it that you two need us to do concerning the 2028 election that's coming up to shift this momentum to a whole nother arena? Remember, I am somebody.
Well, I know you're somebody. Look, I think first we got to do the 2025, the here and now infrastructure.
Okay.
We need you to register every person you know in this community. We need you to be out there knocking on doors and talking to your friends and talking to people at all the different churches about how the Republicans aren't showing up at town halls, how they are voting to take away health care, how they're voting to take away education funding. We need to make sure that we toss out the Republicans, any Republican who voted for this bill to take away things from South Carolina and give tax breaks to the billionaires needs to be sent home. We need you to help make sure we are holding these people accountable. But then when we do that, when we have that infrastructure, when we have all of the passion and energy of what you're building here, I believe that will be the foundation for a movement across this country that's going to demand a new progressive politics, a politics that says no to big money, a politics that centers the American people, working and middle-class people again, a politics of Medicare for all, child care $10 a day, $15 of wages, a politics that says we're going to bring capital and jobs to every part of the country. That's what I think we can build. But we've got to do the work starting in 2025.
Absolutely.
And you can be one of the leaders of doing that. I know you will be.
Yep. Let me tell you, someone is leaving out right now. Thank you all for coming. But I just saw a T-shirt and on it said, "Let's do something great together." I want us to do something great together, and we certainly can. The numbers and destiny is on our side, but we have to fight it. We cannot get closer to dreams than this unless we run for it, unless we fight for it. And we have to be as determined to fight for what we want as they are fighting to take back what are our rights.
John, that's our theme for last year. Let's do something great together here at Mountain View Baptist Church. So there are T-shirts all over Greenville County that look like that. Let's do something great together. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Minister Clarence Thornton. And I'm not going to come here to beat anybody up. I'm not going to come here to beat anybody up. Because I admire every state leader, every council leader, every national leader that's out here fighting for us. One of the things I'm going to talk about the most as a Democratic Party, this is just some advice. Don't always be reactive, but be proactive. You never win a fight if all you're going to do is stay on defense. If you're in a boxing match, you have to throw some punches. You have to throw some punches. If you're on a football team, the defense can stop them from scoring, but it takes the offense to score. What's happening with the Republican Party, they stay on offense, and we're always on defense. Now, one of the things that you have to do as a party is stay on the news. You got to get your voice out to everyone. And like I said, it's easy to beat them up. But what you doing? What you doing? Are you going out in your neighborhood? Are you fighting for your neighborhood? You always want to put the blame on somebody else. But what are you doing for your neighborhood? And it's easy to sit on the sidelines and throw stones at the others. But what are you doing? And I look at Lottie Gibson. I look at Zantine Norris. How they had to fight for a Martin Luther King holiday. I never forget the day I was talking to Zantine and she was crying. She was crying to say, "Clarence, Mr. Thornton, I don't think we're going to ever have a Martin Luther King holiday." I had to speak to Zantine. I said, we're going to have it. We're going to have it because the Bible said we got authority in our mouth and we're going to speak it. And we spoke it into existence. But Jesse Jackson had to come down here to help us. The Reverend Jesse Jackson told us to come down and help us. And one thing I got from him, he told us don't give up, don't give out, and don't give in. And Jesse Jackson said, if you get knocked on the ground, get up. Because the ground is no place for a champion. Now, we might have got knocked down, but we need to get up. Now, protest is good. But if you don't have no vote test to go with it, then you're wasting your time. All this is not going to matter if you're not going to go out there in November and make a difference with all your friends. And like I say, as Inez Mars would say, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And they're going to eat you alive. At least these brothers are on the table. They out there doing what they got to do. They out there spreading the message around. Let us go out and do the same. God bless you. I hope your daddy doing well. Like I said, don't give up, don't give out, don't give in. As Barack Obama would say, fired up, ready to go. I'm fired up, I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to go right now with you all. God bless you.
I'll pass that message on to my father, Reverend Jackson. You're the keeper of the torch. Keep firing.
Gentlemen, my name is Clarence Eccles, and I'm from Robbins, Illinois. Shout out to Congressman Jackson. I think you probably represent where I grew up. Harvey, Dalton, Dixmoor, that area.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. We had issues back when I was a kid. I've been voting since 1968. Okay, I haven't missed an election. My wife is sitting up there. She's been a nurse for 42 years. We nursed my mother. She let my mother move into our house, a mother-in-law now. You know how that goes. But my mother was on Medicaid. She was a retired public school teacher. Taught at Thornton in Harvey, Illinois. She taught for 20 years and retired and took her pension and enjoyed life. The last few years she was here with us in a nursing home and on Medicaid. She qualified. We had to juggle some stuff to get her to qualify for it. But I just want to know, when are we going to hear about all the fraud and misuse and all that stuff that the Republicans talk about happening in Medicaid when we know it's not? Okay, and also the last thing I want to say is I appreciate Chandra Dillon and Carl Allen and all of our officials here for what they've done, because they've had a heck of a time against these Republicans. William Timmons needs to go. William Timmons got to go. That man was afraid to come here and have a town hall in District 4. He's not here tonight. He hasn't been here. He won't come. He's got to go. We got to have people from out of state come here and tell us what's going on in D.C., and our representative won't even come and talk to us about the votes that he's taken. He's got to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking out, and thank you to your wife for her incredible work. I'll just say very briefly that you're absolutely right, that the real fraud is not in Medicaid. The real fraud is the private insurance companies with Medicare Advantage, where you get on that, they deny coverage, they pretend that their clients are sicker than they are, and they're ripping off the American people. But the Republicans aren't going against the private insurance companies because the private insurance companies are giving them campaign contributions. But they're going after the working poor because they know that the working poor don't have the money to give to politics. That's what's going on in this country.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Gabriel Kraft, and I'm from Greenville Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and I really appreciate the pastor here leading us with goal here in Greenville. But anyways, I just wanted to ask if we could take this short moment, if you would allow us to take a moment to take out our phones and maybe take a screenshot of scvotes.org and 5 calls. I know Timmons, I call him all the time with 5 calls, the 5 calls app. You can open that up on your phone and you can call your representatives, and we're just flooding them all the time. But these are 2 things. I know everybody here needs to be registered and we need to go vote. That goes without saying. But yeah, but I don't know, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. There you go. You run a good ship here, huh? There's the registration and how you can contact. Let me end, and then I'll give Jonathan the last word, and of course Pastor Mills to close. First of all, thank you to all the other pastors who are here. Stand up if you're a pastor here or of a church. Let's thank them for their leadership. That's incredible. That's incredible. And thank you for coming out, hundreds of folks, despite the rain, to speak out about what our country needs to do. Look, we see the passion here. This is why Jonathan and I have been going to the red districts. People are angry. They're angry that their representatives are voting big money instead of voting what's in the interest of their constituents. And they would not be there if we got the information out. They raise the money, they put on fake TV ads, they pretend they're for the people, but really what they're doing is taking away health care, taking away child care benefits, taking away food assistance, all to have tax breaks for the wealthy, taking from the working class to give to the wealthiest people in America. It really is unconscionable. It's the most unconscionable piece of legislation in my lifetime. But we, in this place, need to start the movement of fighting back. To fighting back, because 300 people, and this is going to be all over the local news. It's going to be all over the local papers. And if I was a congressman and 300 people, if 300 people showed up in my district and they were upset, I'd take notice. Timmons is going to take notice. Mace is going to take notice. And mobilized people in this country is the only thing that has ever brought change. And I'll end with this point. The first time the Civil Rights Act was introduced was 1950. And then they tried it for year after year after year. And it didn't pass till 1964. 14 years. Change in this country is hard, it's painful, and progress is too slow. But the only thing that makes it move faster and that makes it move forward is when citizens like you get involved, take charge, and demand something different. That's what all of you are doing, and I am so honored that you invited us here to be part of that movement to start to take back this country. Jonathan?
Hey, thank you so much, Congressman Rowe. This was his idea for us to get together. I want to thank all the ministers. Give them another loving round of applause. Thank you, Reverend Miles. These things just don't happen. All the future candidates, let me acknowledge you. Please stand. Anybody that's committed to running, come on, stand up, Brown. Who else is running? All those, let's give the face, the light. Turn around so everybody can take a good look at you. In case you don't go to the casino, I want you to see these are going to be our representatives, so you can see them right here in this church. And I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We are here for the hard lifting, the hard work. And I can't thank the pastor of this great church for using the highest and best use of this church, of this sanctuary. I don't know about you, but I was taught to edify man and glorify God. We've got to lift up the Lord. We've got to do his work on earth. We're not going to leave going back, sitting down backwards. And I want to say lastly in closing, thank you, thank you, thank you. The fight has begun. We're bringing the fight to the representatives that don't want to represent you. You're on the ground. We're here to support. Tell us what you want. In the meantime, until you get some better representatives, we're going to be back.
Wow, this is incredible tonight. Y'all give it up for congressmen who have been with us today. While you're giving it up, give it up for the Mountain View team. Some of them have been here since 9 o'clock this morning with worship, and then this afternoon. This could not have happened without Mountain View being committed. Thank you so much for what you've done. Come on, say this with me. Run, row, run. Say it once again. Run, row, run. One more time. Run, row, run. That's what we want to see happen. Give it up for Congressman Roe Conner. I'm going to ask the pastors of Pastors United for Action to come join me here. And I'm going to ask Reverend Fleming, who is president of the local NAACP, to close us in prayer. All of our families need it. You knew you were coming to a church, so you knew you ran the risk of somebody praying over you. So thank you for holding still while Reverend Fleming prays over you. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here tonight. And as we go from this gathering, may we go with the resolve to stay fired up. May we go with the resolve to not let people play in your face and tell you untruths about our government. We want to demand righteous justice and hold people accountable. Thank you, Greenville, for coming out tonight and making this possible. Reverend Fleming. Yeah. Let me ask also, Representative Dillard, will